wonderful people. Smart, intelligent, bright, sometimes a little anxious. But great readers. Alison, it's all yours.
Whenever I read a story, my first instinct is to always put myself in a character's position. If I was Mr. Gatsby in The Great Gatsby, what would I do? If I was Belle from Beauty and the Beast, what would I say? So naturally, reading and listening to the Bible puts my mind in some interesting places. Because truly, what would I do if I watched Jesus die, watched him come back to earth, and then watched him ascend into heaven again? Because if I'm being honest, I might think I was seeing things. But I think what would confuse me most is in these situations, Jesus' answer to the shock is pretty much always wait, be patient, or something along the lines of, you will understand soon enough. Which, if you know me, is not something I'm always good at. However, I also have to remember that I am actually in this story. And Jesus does, in fact, tell me to wait sometimes, even when I really, really don't want to. In some ways, that's what senior year has felt like for me, just constantly being told to wait. And I'm not going to stand here and lie and say I was always okay with that, because, as I said, I am not a patient person, and I do, in fact, not like being told to wait. Often, when I am waiting, the what-ifs creep in, too. What if it doesn't all work out? What if I did something wrong and then everything else goes wrong too? What if I have no idea what I am doing at all? And most importantly, what if I missed God somewhere? But I have found that despite all of these hypotheticals that haunt my brain, the one I can always rule out is that I didn't miss God, because God wouldn't miss me. And if there is one thing that I have taken from the process of applying to college and closing a chapter of my life, it's the clarity that comes in the waiting. It's hard to realize it in the moment, but God does in fact know what he's doing when he's showing me when I am in the waiting. Then I'm in the other part of the story, and at least in my mind, Jesus is glowing and speaking all these big words and floating into heaven, and I can't even begin to imagine how I would react to that. Which leads me to my other least favorite thing, the unknown, where there's no plan, no instructions on what I'm supposed to do. Because, I mean, seriously, what are you supposed to do when you see a glowing Jesus? Yet, once again, this year has shown me the beauty of the unknown. From new friends to a college I had never even really heard or thought of last year, I have seen just how true it is that God's plans are far beyond anything I could ever imagine. The people I will be surrounded by, the things I learn, and how everything will go is always up in the air. But it is those moments that show the goodness that comes from uncertainty. What I love most about these moments is not only getting to have that aha moment in my own life, but getting to see God at work in other people's lives too. For example, some of you might not know this, but I have the opportunity to help with children's chapel on Sunday mornings. And while it is often a struggle to get myself here on time, it is one of my favorite places to be after a long week. Getting to physically and emotionally see the childlike wonder that experiencing God is truly unmatched. From the imaginative questions that stop me in my tracks, to the acts of God I get to see around me, it forces me to focus more on what is happening to not only those surrounding me, but myself too. One time specifically, I remember a conversation about heaven and what all the kids thought it looked like. And it made me realize I had this set image in my head and, surprise, surprise, a plan of what I thought happened there. But listening to the imaginative descriptions of what God had planned for us and what kind of restaurants may or may not be in heaven, I realized the certain kind of clarity that comes in the unknown. Clarity that leads to a peace of knowing God has me, has a plan for me, and knows the uncertainty in my head, yet still chooses to accept it anyway. So maybe Jesus didn't go floating into the air and start glowing, or maybe he did. What I do know is that he tells us, "It is not for you to know the times or periods that the Father has set by his own authority." It's hard to accept sometimes that I don't get the exact timeline of my life. Yet, that is the love God gives us. And it isn't a disadvantage. It's a privilege to know that there is a plan. There's a time for everything. And I still get to experience the excitement of new things in the unknown. Still, if you are like me and sometimes struggle to accept the fact that not having a plan won't result in the end of the world, I recommend taking a moment to listen to the people around you. Because sometimes all it takes is a different perspective to see our God at work in the most unexpected and exciting of ways. Amen.